17. What emotionally strong people do not do. 1. They do not believe every feeling they have means something. They don't assign value to everything they feel. They know that conviction doesn't make something true. 2. They aren't threatened by not being right. They understand that having a misinformed belief or incorrect idea does not invalidate them as a person. 3. They do not use logic to deny their emotions. They validate their feelings by acknowledging them. They do not say someone shouldn't feel a particular way if they do. 4. They do not project meaning onto everything they see. Particularly, they do not assume that everything they see or hear has something to do with them. They do not compare themselves to other people, simply because the idea that other people exist in comparison to oneself is mindless at best and selfish at worst. 5. They do not need to prove their power. Rather than embody an inflated image of their invincibility, their disposition is predominantly peaceful and at ease, which is the mark of a truly secure person. 6. They do not avoid pain, even if they are afraid of it. They cope with discomfort in favor of breaking an old habit. They trace the root of a relationship issue, rather than deflect from the symptoms. They recognize that the discomfort is in avoiding the pain, not the pain itself. 7. They do not seek out other people's flaws in an effort to diminish their strengths. They do not respond to someone's successes with observations about their failures. 8. They don't complain too much. When people complain, it's because they want others to recognize and validate their pain. Even if it's not the real problem, it's still a form of affirmation. 9. They do not filter out certain aspects of an experience to catastrophize it. People who jump A to Z and only think up worst-case scenarios usually do not have the confidence that they can take care of themselves if something unexpected were to arise. So they prepare for the worst and rob themselves of the best in the process. 10. They do not keep a list of things people should or shouldn't do. They recognize that right and wrong are two highly subjective things, and that believing there is a universal code of conduct to which all people need to adhere only makes a person who believes that consistently disappointed. 11. They do not consider themselves a judge of what's right or wrong. Especially when it comes to offering friends advice, they don't assume their ideal response to a situation is the solution everyone needs. 12. They do not draw general conclusions from their personal experiences. They do not draw their own generalized conclusions about the human race based on the small percentage of the world that they experience each day. 13. They do not change their personality based on who they're around. Everyone fears rejection, but not everyone gets to truly experience the kind of acceptance that comes from being yourself unconditionally. 14. They can stand up for themselves without being aggressive or defensive. Though it sounds like a contradiction, aggressiveness or defensiveness is indicative of insecurity. Calmly standing up for oneself is indicative of inner resolve and self-esteem. 15. They do not assume that this is always the way their life will be. They are always conscious of the fact that their feelings are temporary, be they good or bad. This makes them focus on the positive and let the negative go with more ease. 18. 10 key things we misunderstand about emotion. 1. The long-term effects of emotional abuse can be as bad, if not worse, than physical abuse. Emotional abuse is often not taken as seriously because it cannot always be seen. But the severity of the long-term effects of any type of abuse aren't all that different. Emotional abuse is similar to physical abuse in that it systematically wears away at a person's self-confidence, worth, and concept. Emotional abuse can manifest in a variety of ways, including but not limited to controlling, threatening, degrading, belittling, criticizing, shouting, etc. 2. Emotions outlast the memories that created them. We take past emotions and project them onto situations that are in our current lives. This is to say, unless we heal what happened in the past, we're always going to be controlled by it. Furthermore, our irrational fears and most severe day-to-day anxieties can be traced back to a cause, which needs to be addressed to effectively stop the effect. 3. Creative people are depressed for a reason. The expression and experience of negative emotions are correlated with activation in the right frontal cortex, as well as in other structures such as the amygdala, or in other words, the same areas that are activated when consistently being creative and putting abstract meaning to the concrete reality of whatever your current experience is. 4. Fear doesn't mean a desire to escape. It means you're interested. The emotion most associated with fear is interest, believe it or not. It's even been said that fear has two invisible faces, one that wants to flee and the other that wants to investigate. This is to say, nothing is generally scary to us unless some part of us also wants to understand it, knows we are a part of it, and feels as though it will become part of our experience. 5. Feelings other than happiness are not marks of failure. Health is having a spectrum of emotion. Negative emotions are good for you. In fact, maintaining a consistent experience of only happiness, or any emotion really, would be a sign of mental illness. It's simply not how our minds and bodies are structured. In other words, you're not supposed to be happy all the time. Listen to what your body is telling you. Negative emotions are a signal that something isn't right. The emotion doesn't have to be fixed. The thing that it's signaling your attention to does. 6. Emotions can predict the future, or in other words, gut feelings are real. A study at Columbia University, which is being called the emotional oracle effect, essentially proved that people who trust their emotions can predict future outcomes. Because they tap into it regularly, they have a window into their subconscious mind, which is more or less just an unconscious well of information. 7. We can relive social pain more than we can physical pain, which is another reason some researchers believe it is, in a sense, more damaging. When there aren't any psychological factors at play into physical pain, or rather, there's no innate instinct that we need to process or readjust ourselves to survive, we let the memory go. However, our brains will prioritize rejection or other social emotion or humiliation because we need to remain in the tribe to survive. 8. Stress may just be the most dangerous emotion, especially when it's consistent, and yet it goes unaddressed more often than other feelings. Relaxing isn't something you should do to pamper yourself. It's absolutely essential. Stress debilitates every part of you, and it's in one way or another interconnected with the top causes of death around the world: accidents, cancer, heart disease, suicide, etc. 9. Social media is actually making us more emotionally disconnected. Consistently consuming sound bites of people's lives leads us to piece together a particular idea of reality, one that is far from the truth. We develop such anxiety surrounding social media, and whether or not we're really living up to the standards expected of us, that we begin to prioritize screen time over real-life face time. As beings who require human intimacy, romantic and not, to survive, it's becoming a more and more detrimental force in our culture. 10. You cannot selectively numb emotion. When we numb hard feelings, we numb joy, we numb gratitude, we numb happiness. Brené Brown argues that you cannot numb yourself to one experience without numbing yourself to everything else. You cannot disregard sadness without also making yourself immune to happiness. This is to say, it's healthier to experience everything, the good and the bad. 19. The little things you don't realize are affecting how you feel about your body. 1. How your parents felt about their bodies and what they said about them and others, even when you were little or they didn't think you were listening. So goes my favorite saying, the way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. 2. Photoshop's so good you don't even realize there's Photoshop, and so your perception of normal is totally skewed. 3. The attitudes of the first people you dated/were intimate with, and whether or not they appreciated your body for the completely awesome thing it was and is. For whatever reason, people's body hang-ups can often be traced back to those initial experiences, especially if they were negative. 4. How you judge other people. What you first reach to insult someone with, especially when it's physical, says infinitely more of you than them. 5. The way your friends treat their bodies and behave. In this case, it's less about what they say to you or about themselves, and much more what you pick up on through their actions. We begin to subconsciously adopt the collective mindset of the group of people we hang out with most. 6. What media you consume. The books and magazines you read, websites you visit, TV shows you binge watch all combine to create your concept of what's normal and what's ideal, and you usually derive these ideas from the characters you identify with most. 7. Your heritage and your hometown. Food is such an integral part of culture. It's largely the thing we socialize around. It is tied to the culture in which you were raised. Emotional eating can start young, and passing judgments about your figure from not ill-intentioned relatives can really settle into your psyche after a while. 8. Whether or not you've been in a relationship in which you felt that your connection was more than just skin deep. It's hard to believe that love can exist without hinging on physical expectations until you experience it and you start to realize that appearance really doesn't matter most. 9. If you are associating fitness with being a means to an end, that end being a different body, as opposed to being something holistic to keep yourself running, pun intended. 10. How genuine your friendships are. If you only maintain relationships with people out of convenience, if you don't have anybody in your life to whom you know you're important for who you are and not what you do for them, your attentions will generally be focused on maintaining a physical, exterior kind of acceptability. 11. The comments people yell on the street. Even if catcalls are meant to be complimentary, this is arbitrary, but bear with me, they still reduce your body to a commodity. 12. How much you understand about health versus genetic build. The fact that we don't ever lose fat cells, they just shrink. And the concept of big versus small/heavy versus light is completely subjective to each person. If you only gauge your body's acceptability by comparison, you'll never be enough. 13. An assignment of good and bad to foods in terms of how they'll make you look, how they'll make you feel, or how good they'll be for you. It skews your idea of what's important for your body in general. 14. Not spending any time outside. The sun regenerates your body. We are as solar-powered as the foods we eat, and to deny your body that source of warmth and light is to deplete your feel-good hormones and everything else you are built to live in. 15. Not having anything more important to base your self-worth on. When you don't feel like you have anything more important to offer the world, it's inevitable that you get stuck on what's most easy to see and judge. 16. Unrequited love. It's easy to pin something physical to being the reason someone isn't interested, But someone who only loves you when you're 20 pounds thinner is not someone you want to be with anyway. 17. The constant attention given to celebrities' bodies, how frequently you consume it, and how seriously you take it. Whether they're bouncing back after having a baby or simply going through the ebb and flow of life, they're under the kind of scrutiny that would almost make it seem that obsessing about 10 pounds after you've had a baby is normal. Part of their job is to endure this, and it's terrible. But you don't need to be another person entertaining yourself with it. It's not helping anybody. Hold yourself to your own standard. 18. Forgetting what our bodies were meant to do. Laugh and play and jump and hug and love. And there's literally zero evolutionary advantage in having chiseled hip bones to help you do any of that. 20. Goals to set that are more about enjoying what you have than chasing what you don't. Milestones are markers that you're evolving. They do not create emotional fulfillment in the way we think they will. This confusion is why, with the dawn of each new year, our resolutions are to change our lives rather than to change ourselves. But what if we made goals that were more about loving what we have rather than chasing what we don't? What if we realized that it's what we were seeking in the first place? It's something to consider, if not even try just a little. Here are a few ideas to get you started. 1. Pick up where you left off. Finish the half-read books on your shelf. Eat what's in the cupboard. Wear what you own in ways you never thought of before. Apologize and mean it. Call old friends. Revisit old projects. Try other routes. 2. Seek out ways to appreciate the way people are, not the way you want them to be. It is not your job to judge who is deserving of your love and kindness. It is not your job to fix anybody. It is only your job to love them in whatever way is appropriate. You are not anybody else's God. 3. Make time for the friends you have more than you seek out the ones you don't. Stop counting how many people are in your life as though hitting a certain tally will make you feel loved. Start appreciating how rare and beautiful it is to even just have one close friend in life. Not everybody is so lucky. 4. Each day, write down one thing your body allowed you to do. Whether it was watching your favorite show or listening to the sounds on the street on the way to work, or being able to see a computer screen or hug someone you love. Focus on what your body does more than what it looks like doing it. 5. Learn to love things that don't cost much. Learn to love simple food and cooking it, being outside, the company of a friend, going for walks, watching the sunrise, a full night's sleep, a good day's work. 6. Start a journal of days where you write down a sentence or two to sum up each day of your year. The reason keeping up with a journal is only sustainable for a week or so is that nobody has the time or energy to thoughtfully or extensively detail their everyday lives. Yet we miss out on the incredible opportunity to see how far we've come and what our lives are ultimately comprised of when we fail to. So make it easy for yourself. Just write down one sentence that sums up the day before bed. In a year, you'll be grateful you did. 7. Find meaning and joy in the work you do, not the work you wish you did. Finding fulfillment in work is never about pursuing your idea of what your purpose is. It is always about infusing purpose into whatever it is you already do. 8. Start your own holiday traditions. Make the most special days of the year reflect who you are and what you love, and how you want to celebrate your life. 9. Do a spend cleanse, where you only use what you have for a period of time. At once, teach yourself the art of denying immediate gratification for the sake of something more important, and show yourself that you already have everything you need, or at least more than you think you do, even when it doesn't feel like it. 10. Give everything you own a home. It is essentially the key to feeling at peace in your space. Go through your belongings and only keep what's purposeful or beautiful to you, and then assign each of those things a home, or a space to return to each night. It makes maintaining flow in your space effortless and calming. 11. Learn to live within your means. No matter how much money you make, your percentage habits will remain the same. If you're in the habit of seeing all of the income you make as spending money, as opposed to investing money, saving money, etc., you will always revert to that habit, no matter how much you make. It is only by learning to live comfortably within your means that you're able to actually achieve your goals when you earn more. 12. Call your mom. Not everybody has the privilege. 13. Aspire to be someone who gives things meaning, not who seeks things to give them meaning. Rather than chasing success, chase kindness. Rather than believe wealth is the mark of a life well lived, believe that intelligence is, or kindness is, or open-mindedness is. 14. Do the most important things immediately in the morning. Give your energy to what matters most, when you have the most of it. It also helps you define what really matters to you. 15. Shed what no longer serves you. Teach yourself to let go of the big things by learning to let go of the little ones. It is easier to bypass thoughts and emotions that are negative in nature when you're able to release belongings and objects with negative associations. 16. Pace yourself. If at any point you're doing anything in which you cannot feel your breath, you're moving too fast. Make physical relaxation a priority, no matter what you're doing. Keep track of your breath at all times. Be mindful, present, and intentional with everything you do. It is not the quantity of what we accomplish, but the quality of it. 21. 102 ways to not let irrational thoughts ruin your life. 1. Learn to differentiate what's actually happening from what you're currently thinking about. 2. Learn the difference between honesty and truth. The way you honestly feel can be different from how you truthfully feel. The former is usually temporary. The latter is deeper and consistent. 3. Stop trying to navigate the path while the forest is dark. You'll most want to try to make changes to your life when you're consumed by emotion, but that's the worst time to do so. Do not make decisions when you're upset. Let yourself come back to neutral first. 4. Fire can burn your house down, or it can cook you dinner each night and keep you warm in the winter. Your mind is the same way. 5. Recognize that anxiety stems from shame. It is the idea that who you are or what you are doing is not right, therefore eliciting a rush of energy designed to help you fix or change it. You're suffering because there's nothing you can fix to make that urgent, panicked feeling go away. It's a mismanaged perception of who and how you are. 6. Remedy your tunnel vision by writing your narrative on a piece of paper. Start with, "My name is," and then go on to list where you live, what work you do, what you've accomplished, who you spend time with, what you're working on, what you're proud of. 7. Realize that thoughts are illusions, but powerful ones. Take inventory of all the things you've thought and worried about that have turned out not to be real. Think of all the time you wasted preparing for outcomes that would never manifest and problems that were only in your head. 8. Practice negative visualization. Create tangible solutions for your intangible fears. Show yourself that you won't actually die if you lose a job or a boyfriend. Make a list of the things you worry about most. Imagine the worst outcome, then make a plan for exactly how you would deal with it if that came to pass. 9. Stop being so cerebral. Do things with your hands. Cook, clean, go outside. 10. Evolve past one-dimensional thinking. People who worry a lot are usually very firm in their convictions of what is and isn't. They fail to see complexity, opportunity, the majority of the iceberg that is the reality they don't know and can't see. 11. Practice healthy discomfort. Learn to lean into your stress, not resist it. 12. Change your objective. The goal is not to feel good all the time. It's to be able to express a healthy range of emotion without suppressing or suffering. 13. Ask yourself the following questions when a thought upsets you. Is this true? Can I absolutely know this is true? Most of the time, the answer will be no to one or both. 14. Do more. If you have time to be regularly consumed by irrational, spiraling thoughts, you need more to focus on, more to work toward, more to suffer for. Make sure you're living more than you're thinking about living. 15. Accept the fact that everyone, everywhere, has weird, incorrect, disturbing thoughts that have no bearing on reality. You are not a freak. You are probably not sick. You just have to learn to not be intimidated by your own mind. 16. Freaking out is not usually what happens when something in your life actually needs to change. Depression, anger, resistance, sadness, that's what happens when something isn't right. Stop gauging how bad things are by how much you panic, and start by gauging what your emotional homeostasis is. That's how you know what's really wrong or right, what you consistently do, and how you regularly feel. 17. When you are spiraling, be able to say out loud, I'm having a panic attack. I'm having irrational thoughts. Doing so is the first step toward bringing yourself back to reality. 18. Identify your comfort zones and step back into them now and again. Moving past the place that you're used to is a gradual process. Going too quickly is a recipe for a breakdown. 19. Prove yourself wrong. Show yourself that your thoughts have no basis in truth. Go to the doctor and confirm that you aren't dying of some incurable disease. Ask someone how they feel about you if you don't know. Do not live in the gray area when answers are available. 20. Do not always trust yourself. Give yourself space to be wrong. Open yourself up to the idea that you don't know what you don't know. If your feelings are informed by irrational thoughts, they can very well be incorrect. 21. Trust what gives you peace. Even if the idea of an intimate relationship or a career in the field of your dreams scares you initially, if it's what you really want, it will also give you a feeling of yes. Trust your yes feelings. 22. Take the instances in which you're most uncomfortable to mean that it's time you expand yourself. You need to learn to think differently, see differently, do differently. You need to open yourself. If you don't, you'll be stuck in the cocoon phase forever. 23. Fall in love with the unknown. For the fact that it will almost always bring you things better than you could have imagined. Things that are worse than you could have imagined are almost always products of your own thinking or perception of what they mean about you or your future. 24. Practice radical acceptance. Learn to tell the parts of your story you'd rather shove under the rug. You're allowed to say, I don't love my body. I feel a little stuck right now. I am not happy in my relationship. I am in debt, without it being a condemning statement. 25. Realize that there are 3 layers of you: your identity, your shame, and your true self. Your identity is your outermost layer. It's the idea that you think other people have of you. Your shame is what's shielding you from expressing your true self, which is at your core. It is from your shame circle that irrational thoughts breed and thrive. Work on closing the gap between who the world thinks you are and who you know you are. Your mental health will change significantly. 26. Learn deep breathing exercises. This sounds kind of annoying if you've tried it and it hasn't worked before, but it's actually one of the most effective non-prescription solutions to a freakout. 27. Expand your perceptions. If you're uncomfortable, you're being pushed to think beyond what you've known. You're being called to see yourself in a new way. Open yourself to possibilities you normally wouldn't consider or layers of yourself you've yet to see. 28. Practice rational thinking, and often. You shouldn't trust your mind to think healthfully on autopilot. You have to train it. 29. Part of that training will include knowing what to do when something irrational pops up, which is to evaluate it objectively, determine if it serves you, and laugh about it if not. 30. Irrational thoughts are sometimes products of intense, rational fears you've yet to fully acknowledge or deal with. When you're in a stable state of mind, sit down and be honest with yourself about what those are. 31. Differentiate the fine line between what you can and can't control. You can, for example, control how much effort you put into your work. You cannot control how other people respond to it. You can control what you wear each day. You cannot control how good other people think you look. 32. Stop pretending you know what other people are thinking. 33. Stop pretending you know what the future holds indefinitely. 34. Understand that your sense of self is entirely a mental thing, and it's the foundation of your sanity. If you believe you're the kind of person who can bear pain or loss, you will be the kind of person who can bear pain or loss. If you believe you're worthy of love, you will experience love when it comes. 35. Work on redefining your sense of self by things that aren't material or shallow. Instead of thinking you are someone who is attractive and successful, learn to think of yourself as someone who is resilient, hungry for new experiences, capable of deeply loving others, and so on. 36. Learn to see each day from the perspective of your older self. 37. Think about who you were 2 years ago, or even 5. Try to remember a random day in your life during those times. Notice how your focus immediately turns toward what you had to be grateful for. Learn to do that with today. 38. Sometimes the best way to get over anything is just to work on forgetting about it. Not everything requires analysis. 39. The best way to forget is to fill your life with new, better things. Things you may not have expected. Things you didn't know about. Things you never imagined you'd like. 40. Accept that irrational thoughts, much like anxiety or sadness or anything else, will always be a part of your life. They aren't going anywhere. Experiencing them isn't a sign that you've backtracked, or that you're off path, or that something's desperately wrong per se. 41. Recognize that there's a correlation between worry and creativity. It's the most basic aspect of human evolution. The more we fear something, the more creative we are in creating solutions to adapt to the alternative. See your fears as catalysts for bettering your life, not as you being condemned to suffering. 42. Remember that you can choose what you think about. And even when it feels like you can't, it's because, again, you're choosing to believe that. 43. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. Marcus Aurelius. 44. Go outside and look at the stars and drink a glass of wine. 45. Try bullet journaling. When you go back and reread it, you'll begin to see what your patterns are, particularly your self-sabotaging ones. 46. Meditate and imagine speaking with your oldest, wisest, most optimal future self. What you're doing is tapping deep into your subconscious. Let your choices be guided by the person you hope to become. 47. Laugh. 48. When you ask other people for advice on whatever you're worrying about, first ask yourself what you hope they'll say. That's what you want to tell yourself. 49. Talk to other people and ask them to tell you about the silly things they worry irrationally about. You're in good company. 50. Work on developing your mental strength. Train your mind like you would your body. Work on focusing, thinking, imagining. This is the single best thing you can possibly do for your life. 51. Say thank you for the fact that you care enough about yourself to even feel panicked about something in the first place. 52. Remind yourself that what you fear is a shadow side to what you love. The more fear, the more love. Learn to start seeing what's right as much as you worry about what's not. 53. Give yourself permission to feel okay. This is why we love when other people love us. Nobody else can actually transmute the sensation of love. We crave it from others because it lets us flip the mental switch that gives us permission to be happy, proud, excited, or content. The trick, the whole work of loving ourselves, is just learning to do it on our own. 54. Keep your spaces clean and clear. 55. Recite mantras or prayers or motivational speeches in the mirror, if you must. Anything that focuses your mind on something positive and hopeful. 56. Consume your mind with things that interest you, aside from your own problems. 57. If you cannot do this, it means you don't know yourself well enough yet. That's okay. The point is that you realize this now and begin learning. 58. Practice happiness. External events don't create meaning or fulfillment or contentment. How we think about them does. If you're operating on a scarcity mindset, you'll always be unhappy, no matter what you have or get. 59. Do something unexpected. Book a trip. Date someone wrong for you. Get a tattoo. Start looking for a new job in a field you didn't think you'd enjoy. Show yourself that you don't know what you don't know about your life or yourself. Not completely. Not yet. 60. Practice radical acceptance. Choose to love your home and your body and your work, even if you don't like it all the time. Choose to build your life from a place of gratitude and vision, rather than running from your own fears. 61. Be mindful of who you surround yourself with. Your most constant company will account for a lot of how you turn out over the coming years. Pay attention. 62. Spend time on your own, especially when you feel like you don't want to. You are your first and last friend. You are with you until the end. If you don't want to be with you, how can you expect anyone else to either? 63. Rewrite your success narrative. Sometimes success is getting enough sleep. Sometimes it's doing what you know is right, despite the fact that everyone else in your life is looking down on it. Sometimes it's just getting through the day or the month. Lower your expectations. 64. Write out your fears in explicit detail. 65. Listen to scary podcasts or watch horror movies. Expose yourself to things that are actually terrifying. This will either make it better or worse, but hey, give it a try. 66. Dream bigger. If you feel as though you're constantly running through the same issues in your mind, you've yet to visualize a future that is greater than your present. When you have something more important to work toward, or someone to be better for, the obsession with little made-up problems will quickly dissolve. 67. Don't confuse a broken dream with a broken future. 68. Don't confuse a broken heart for a broken life. 69. Create a routine you love, one that involves enough sleep and downtime, and a realistic degree of stuff you know you should do versus stuff you actually want to do. 70. Validate yourself. Choose to believe that the life you have is more than enough. 71. Take an evening, or a few, to meditate on your past. Think of all the pain and sadness you shoved away. Let yourself feel those things. When you let them surface, they won't control you anymore. 72. Choose to do things because you want joy more than you choose to do them because you want to avoid pain. 73. Take an honest look at your life and evaluate how much you've constructed as a means to avoid pain, and decide whether or not those fears are even valid in the first place. Do you hold a lesser view of yourself so nobody else's opinion can hurt you? Do you choose relationships where you're unwanted so you don't have to open up to the vulnerability of love? 74. Make plans to build the life you want, not because you hate the one you have, but because you're in love with the person you know you want to become. 75. Be discerning about what you accept as truth, who you give your energy to, what you do when you procrastinate, and what you surround yourself with at home. 76. Connect with people. Connect with people. Connect with people. 77. Create vision boards, or just use Pinterest more. Seeing the life you want is the first step to creating it. 78. Remember that you're not upset about what you lost. You're upset about what you never really had the chance to have in the first place. You'll regret what you didn't do, not what you've done. 79. Dedicate your time to helping someone else. Volunteer at a homeless shelter. Donate your belongings. Work with kids after school. Make your life about more than just your own wants. 80. Redefine happiness, not as something you experience when you get what you want, but something you feel when you have something meaningful to work toward each day. 81. Focus on getting better, but let go of the end goal. You get better, not perfect. 82. Let yourself be loved as the person you are. You'll quickly see how the main person judging you is you. 83. Stop judging other people. See everyone with dignity, with a story, with reasons for why they are how they are and why they do what they do. The more you accept other people, the more you'll accept yourself and vice versa. 84. Channel your overactive imagination into something creative. Write an insane novel. Write a short horror story. Make up songs and record them on your phone, just for yourself. 85. Or do what every wise person does and use your overactive imagination to imagine the best possible outcomes rather than the worst, and then imagine how you can work toward getting there. 86. Let go of the idea that anything is given or taken from you. You create. You choose. 87. Ask for help when you actually need help. If you don't learn to do this, you will end up exacerbating a million other non-issues and seeking attention for those because you don't actually have what you need. which is support in the moments that really matter. 88. Stop thinking that being sad or broken makes you unlovable or bad. Your honest moments don't destroy relationships. They bond, as long as you're being genuine. 89. Thinking that there are starving kids on the other side of the world will not alleviate your pain, so stop trying to compare. 90. That said, there's a lot worse you could be going through, and if you think back on your life, you can probably remember instances in which you still were. 91. Read books that interest you and read them often. Hearing a new voice in your mind will teach you how to think differently. 92. Take a nap. Seriously. Wrap yourself in a blanket and go to sleep for 20 minutes. It's like hitting the refresh button on your brain. 93. Recognize that fear is an indicator that something is powerful and worthwhile. The deeper the fear, the deeper the love. 94. The obstacle is the way. 95. Let what you dislike about your present be a guiding light toward what you want to love about your future. 96. Challenge yourself to think of possibilities you never imagined before as often as you can. Let your mind explore itself and grow. 97. Nobody is thinking about you the way you are thinking about you. They're all thinking about themselves. 98. Recognize that when you're lost, you're also free. When you have to start over, you get to pick better. If you don't like yourself, you have a chance to fall in love with yourself. Don't stand in front of the road sign forever. Map a new path. 99. This too shall pass. 100. Fucking try. Honestly, seriously, try. Put your everything into the work you have. Be kind to people when they don't deserve it. You'll have a lot less energy to worry with when you're funneling it into things that are really worthwhile. 101. Learn how to relax. Work on learning how to happily do nothing. 102. Trust that things get better as time goes on. Not because time heals, but because you grow. You discover that you're capable. You realize that your fourth breakup doesn't hurt even nearly as bad as your first did. This isn't because life is easier. It's because you're smarter. 22. The inherent zen of creativity. Being creative is as innate to being human as eating, talking, walking, and thinking is. It has always been a process we naturally prioritize. Our ancestors somehow found time to carve their images and stories on cave walls. But we've mistakenly grown to regard it as some form of luxury. You're lucky if you have the means to express yourself. In reality, it is a manner of education, communication, and ultimately introspection, and we are in constant manifestation of it. The mediums have shifted from rock particles to pixels, but we can all still see that there is something inherently human about wanting to imprint, impress, craft, mold, form, paint, write, and otherwise mold something abstract into that which is conceivable to someone else. Unsurprisingly, then, it seems that the most effective creative process is one that follows the art of Zen: meditation, mindfulness, intuition, non-resistance, non-judgment, etc. I did not begin writing because it was something I liked. It was how I figured my way out of pain. It didn't take too long to realize that I didn't want to spend my life creating or exacerbating problems, only to think and feel my way out for the sake of a job. I wanted to be able to write and create just because. Just because I'm alive and breathing and can. I had to learn that my expression did not need to be justified. It is valid because I am a valid human being, the same as you and everybody else. But in the meantime, I tried all the classic writing routines of the greats. the promised formulas for consistent rhythmic creation. I tried to be structured, did anything to induce flow, intentionally probed at the deep, dark, untouched corners of myself, was routine, even when I didn't want to be, and found every bit of it to be dead-ended. I was trying to create structure where structure need not be placed. It did little more than make the process stagnate. The reason being, mostly, that we do not ebb and flow in and out of creation. It is an unseen constant, from the clothes we choose, to the sentences we say, to the way we arrange our desks at work. It comes down to imagining writing or painting or singing or whatever it is you do as coming as naturally as breathing does. It's an effortless process. It draws upon what is outside you and transforms it as it goes through you, and it is tensed, stressed, ebbed, and made more difficult when we consciously try to do it. In fact, anything creative tends to be most hampered by end goals. It is almost imperative that you are completely mindful of the moment, creating from a place of simply allowing whatever is going through you to flow out. Because when you have a pre-prescribed path in mind, it means you are trying to align with somebody else's. It means that the inspiration you have found is you creating your own version of somebody's something else that made you tick and flow. You'll seldom be inspired by work that is coming from a core truth, and that's because it shows you something about yourself. Not just something, the truest truth. That's what makes the process so goddamn unbearable. And that's why we reach for structure. That's what makes us stopper the process. That's why we want inspiration and validation and external support. In the true essence of real Zen, the most creativity can be fostered when you learn to do so without passing judgment, similar to how observing your thoughts and feelings objectively are the path to peace as well. Some of what you write down you'll want to share or make consumable. Some you won't. That's okay too. It's imperative to realize that even the greatest artists weren't consistently prolific, especially not publicly. But considering that inactivity, a lack, loss, or failure is just attaching another ego meaning to it all. You cannot quantify your creativity, and though it is an extension and impression and expression of yourself, it does not define you. You are free to keep the sacredness of your most inner self only within your own existence. The more you can express that and live that without judgment and in the moment, the more you'll feel free to be honest and open up to yourself. The more you feel comfortable with that core self, the more you'll feel able to create from a peaceful place, just because, whenever you want. 23. Everything is here to help you. How intrinsically motivated people become the best versions of themselves. The single most powerful, liberating thing any one of us can do is choose to believe that everything is here to help us. If you want to understand why you perceive your life the way you do, ask yourself what you think the point of it is. This isn't a lofty, philosophical question that you can maybe entertain if you ever develop a penchant to do so. This is the underbelly of how you think and behave. You either see yourself as a victim of what happens to you, or as someone given opportunity to change, grow, see differently, and expand. You either see uncomfortable feelings as suffering you have to deal with, or signals you have to learn from. You either see the world as something that makes you feel, or you see your interpretation of the world as a projection of your feelings. When we think there's a purpose for our pain, the discomfort of it dissolves. It turns from an annoyance to an opportunity. Our suffering ceases. The difference between this mindset, intrinsic, and the opposite, extrinsic, is whether or not we believe that we create our experience, or that our experiences are created for us and imposed on us from an external force. We spend most of our lives being taught that the latter is true, and there's a reason for this. Society likes to believe it thrives when we are extrinsically motivated. At least, This is how capitalism runs. This is how people stay in power. This is how we are kept small. When people believe that they are victims, they forfeit their power. They funnel their energy on other people's ideas, dreams, products. Do we know for certain that there is some higher plan in which we confront obstacles in order to grow? Nope. But we never will. What we do know is that people who are able to create happy lives for themselves right here and right now are the ones who think that way. Unbearable suffering awaits us all. A brief glimpse through history can confirm none of us is guaranteed a happy life. If we want meaning, we have to create it. If we want to find peace, we need to know there's a purpose for suffering. You will either sit in discomfort for the rest of your life, or you will grow and be better for the things that are most difficult. It is very clear who does what. 24. How to know when the only thing in the way of your happiness is you. 1. The only problem with your life is the way you think about it. Objectively, you have everything you could ever want or need, yet your unhappiness simply comes from a lack of appreciation, which is a cultivated trait, if not a practice. 2. The solution to most of your problems is just changing the way you think about them. For example, learning that people's opinions of you are largely projections of how they see themselves would solve your problem, which is evaluating your life through the idea of how other people could perceive it. 3. You're mentally lazy. You know you should be more present, but you won't put in the effort to practice it. You know you should meditate and learn to train your brain to focus so it doesn't become engulfed by negativity, but you head to the gym instead. You're lazy in the way it matters most, and that's your biggest problem. 4. You've accomplished things you thought would make you happy and immediately shifted them from goals to notches on the belt. Once you achieved something, you immediately started to think of it as another thing done, rather than another thing in my life to enjoy. 5. You haven't practiced holding the emotion of happiness. We all have a tolerance for how good we'll let ourselves feel, our upper limit. To go past it, we have to actually practice letting ourselves feel, otherwise we'll self-sabotage, bring ourselves back to our comfort zones. 6. You care more about comfort than you do about change. You'd rather remain moderately uncomfortable than deal with the uncertainty that is making a real change in your life. 7. You consciously choose to spend time with people who aren't good for you, meaning they don't really care about you, or they inspire you to behave in a way that is counter to what you're trying to achieve. In other words, they bring out the worst in you, yet you continue to see them anyway. 8. You won't let your idea of yourself evolve. You're stuck in only being comfortable thinking of yourself the way you were 3, 5, 10 years ago, because that's how other people are comfortable seeing you. 9. You choose what you think should be right, rather than what actually is. You're more loyal to the ideas you have about things and the honest reality you know them to be. 10. You won't apologize. To yourself, nor to others. You're not open to being wrong, and certainly not to taking the ego hit that is admitting you didn't always do your best. Yet doing this is a first step in changing that. 11. You haven't fully taken responsibility for your life. You're still waiting for something to come and change how you feel. Often people choose to suffer loudly because they believe it is a cry to the universe, as in, if they are transparent enough about how bad things are, something or someone else will eventually have to fix or change them. 12. You've ascribed happiness to a level of accomplishment rather than a state of being. You think that only some people can be happy because their life circumstances are ideal, rather than choosing to seek happiness in the moment and realizing that has nothing to do with it. 13. You think that happiness is a sustained state of feeling good when it is really a higher baseline for perception. You are better able to process every emotion, and because you do so healthfully, you return to your general state of contentment quickly. 14. You accept what you're taught, even if it doesn't feel right. You're more trusting of dogma, teaching, or religion simply because you knew it first, not because it resonates or helps you in a real way. 15. You have a good life, and you know you have a good life. At the end of the day, you know it's just about choosing to focus on it more. 25. The psychology of getting unstuck and the 3 stages of making habits autonomous. Success is more a product of habit than it is skill. To excel at something, you must be able to do it prolifically. Many people write well. Few people write well and consistently. What separates experts from the rest of us is a blend of profound self-control, disciplined routine, and unwavering dedication. While natural skill is more or less something you're born with, self-control is something you develop. Most people believe the opposite is true, that they can perfect their talent, but that the drive to do so will come easily. Our minds have a limited means for self-control. This is to say, we are only capable of withholding ourselves from our impulses and desires for a period of time each day. With practice, we can extend that period, but it is finite regardless. People who understand this use their time wisely. They eliminate unnecessary decision-making, reduce distractions, minimize what doesn't matter, and then they focus. Over time, it becomes second nature. In fact, in the 1960s, psychologists identified 3 specific stages we must go through in order to acquire those new skills. Cognitive. When we first intellectualize a task, make mistakes, and ultimately devise new strategies to perform better. Associative. When effort is still required to complete the task, but it's less mentally strenuous than it was. Some aspects of the task are beginning to come naturally. Mistakes are still being made. Autonomous. We go into autopilot, or in some cases, flow. We can release ourselves from conscious focus and let our programming take over. However, it is sometime between the last 2 phases that we get caught in a sort of plateau. We do the task often enough, but our expectation of how we should perform is still miles away from how we think it should be. It is what Ira Glass calls the creative gap, the point at which most people give up. For the first couple years you make stuff, it's just not that good. It's trying to be good. It has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase. They quit. If you are just starting out, or you are still in this phase, you gotta know it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is do a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you will finish 1 story. It is only by going through a volume of work that you will close that gap, and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It's gonna take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just gotta fight your way through. The difference between the people who persevere to see that their work rises to their standard and the people who toss in the towel is not one of sheer, unprecedented talent. It's just a matter of having the, often uncomfortable, commitment to keep growing. If you don't have the desire nor the ability to push past the plateau, then an exodus is a means of showing you that there's something else better suited for you. If you do, it means you must eliminate the unnecessary details, work with your current threshold for self-control, and keep going. Getting unstuck is realizing that you were never stuck in the first place. You only stopped to ask yourself, is this what I'm here for?